South Africa or South African citizens will not be complaining about foreigners coming into their country if there's evidence, there's a proof that everybody in the country is legitimately right to be in the country.
And there it is, the official line. But sorry, not everyone is convinced that illegal migration alone explains the machetes, the burning of shops, and the chance of foreigners must go. That's far too convenient an excuse.
And hold on, let's not dismiss it so quickly. South Africa's international relations minister sat right here under the Baobab and told us that his country is facing a structural migration crisis. So mix that a little bit with 32% unemployment, collapsing service delivery and struggling economy, and you get a pressure cooker. The question here is, who lit the match?
Some say the match was lit by politicians who needed a scapegoat. But let's be honest, government condemnation of these attacks are not stopping anything on the ground. Listen to this.
Now, why are they cautioning their citizens to continue staying in South Africa and be safe? If they are not safe in South Africa, they must caution them to go and hop to the next country or come back home. Don't caution them to stay here.
That's an inflammatory statement, no doubt, but we cannot continue to pretend it doesn't reflect what many ordinary South Africans are feeling today. So dismissing that anger only deepens it. The real journalistic question we should be asking is, why do they feel this way and what would actually solve it?
Solve it? You don't solve a problem by deporting your neighbors. You solve it by fixing your economy, prosecuting corrupt officials, and reforming a broken border system.
The approach that some South Africans are using in their quest to solve the problem, that is where we believe is a challenge.
And that is the heart of it. Pretoria says that it has a finalized national action plan to combat racism, xenophobia, and intolerance. But plans on paper will not protect a shopkeeper in Soweto tonight.
Meanwhile, other African governments are sounding the alarm. Ghana has already begun repatriating hundreds of its citizens. Nigeria, Malawi, and Zimbabwe have issued advisories. So today, let's move past the noise.
And we are asking harder questions. What's the root cause of what is happening in South Africa? Who is failing whom? And what does a real working solution look like for South Africans and for migrants? That's what we are unpacking today under the Baobab. Hi, George. What's your battery level today?
I would say 80, but I fear it may go down.
Mine is 50. I'm hoping that it should be going up.
Okay, all right.
Because when you are going down, I'm going up.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that.
It always has to be like that.
Okay, but tell me, why are you at 50 today?
I'm at 50 today. I saw a lot of comments. Last week, we received the Foreign Minister of South Africa, Ronald Lamola, and the discussion was centered around whether Africans are actually safe in South Africa.
Yes.
And we saw, diverse reactions.
And today, before we get into today's topic and also today's guest, let's dive into the comments. And of course, this is in honor of what you're telling us on our social media. Yeah, so I will begin first of all with Darlington Machila 6745. That is how you call yourself. You say failed Africans are so quick to label South Africans as xenophobic, but they never reprimanded their fellow Africans when they are committing atrocities in South Africa.
There's also this one from Wiseman who says that the minister is so far removed from the lived experiences of ordinary South Africans on the ground. And a Wiseman goes ahead to add that we know why we are saying illegal immigrants must leave, and we will not be intimidated by the government from standing up for ourselves.
Interesting indeed. Another one from Redeemed by Christ says, if Africans feel unsafe in South Africa, they are. Now they must go home to safety or to other countries where they can feel safe. South Africa and its streets belongs to the people of South Africa. South Africa is for South Africans.
I mean, you can say leadership has failed in terms of, delivery, fulfillment of promises. But to say that an African is a failure, it goes beyond just, asking for, limited crimes in South Africa, asking for job opportunities. It seems to be deeper than what we think, George.
I mean, those are raw, unfiltered, and frankly troubling, comments if you were to assess them, but they are respected. Hello and a very warm welcome to Under The Baobab. My name is George Okachi.
And I am Mimi Mefoneo. I thought you were not going to introduce yourself. And on this show, we make sure that we unpack the biggest issues happening in Africa. We also make complex issues personal.
Yes, we do that every week. We demand accountability from policymakers, leaders, and experts shaping our continent. And your voices, as we've demonstrated, sits at the center of this table. Keep those comments coming on our YouTube page, DW Africa.
Today, we are delivering exactly what people ask when we were looking at the comments. Because when people saw that we had interviewed the Foreign Affairs Minister of South Africa, they were asking, why don't you also interview our own officials?
Yes.
So we decided to speak to Ghana's High Commissioner to Pretoria. His name is His Excellency Benjamin Quashie. It was a very insightful discussion, Judge.
Yes, and he is here today to respond directly to South Africa's government and to answer the burning questions you raised after our last week's episode.
Right. And George, I should say that Minister Lamola, during the discussion that we had last week, he was saying that South Africa is currently dealing with what he described as structural migration crisis. And he insisted that other African nations must fix their own economic governance failures rather than, blaming South Africa and the South African citizens.
Yes, he was really doubling on those points, and some have called it, a convenient deflection. And that's also my view, because while Pretoria rolls out anti-xenophobia peace plans, vigilante groups like Operation Dudula Mimi issuing ultimatums on the streets, and they are saying by June 3rd, what they are demanding should happen. I can't even state whatever they are saying.
And you know that now we have the March and March movement that is, all over South Africa at the moment. We even saw some members attacking our own very correspondent also in South Africa just recently. So when you sat down with the High Commissioner, how did you read, or what was his reading of what is going on in South Africa? Because he is in South Africa, right? So we want to know what he thinks about what is going on.
I started by asking him what he believes is the true root cause of these anti-migration, or rather migrant tensions.
Minister Lamola is brilliant. He's spot on when he says that a lot of Africans migrate into this country. I'm sure that South African citizens will not be complaining about foreigners coming into their country if there's evidence, there's a proof that everybody in the country is legitimately right to be in the country. If that was the case, we wouldn't be having a challenge.
Your Excellency, Minister Lamola did not focus much on illegal migration, but rather what he described as a migration burden for South Africa. And I think I will play this clip to frame the concern.
As we speak today, South Africa is the host to the largest migrant population in the African continent in the world of African migrants. And South Africa is today facing challenges or economic that the economy that has not been growing. And because of this contestation of resources, it has led to what you have now seen, the attacks against foreign nationals, particularly of the African population.
Now, in that context, make me understand the imbalance in migration patterns. Ghana, your country with over 35 million people, has more than 15,000 nationals in South Africa, and potentially even 100,000 if undocumented cases are considered, while South Africans in Ghana are around 3,000 to 4,000. Is this pattern fair and sustainable from, South Africa's perspective?
Well, let me clarify this. There are no 100,000 Ghanaians in South Africa. We are not up to 20,000 even in South Africa. Two, there are 3,000 plus South Africans living in Ghana, working and integrated to the Ghanaian community. When you look at the foreign direct investment that comes from Ghana to South Africa, just in the month of February 2026, South Africa made close to 689 million rands. Ask yourself, how much did Ghana make from South Africa during the same period of February? Ghana made close to 2.9 million. So there's a trade gap of close to about 637 million rands. Now, when you want to talk about less resources in a country, you should also look at the foreign direct investment that comes from that country into your jurisdiction. jurisdiction as well. I think that if you look at the trade imbalance between Ghana and South Africa, the beneficiary is South Africa. We are not using that to say that economically there are not challenges. Economically, there are challenges. How do we arrest these challenges? The 15,000 Ghanaians that are in this country, the almost 15,000 Ghanaians that are in this country, most of them are here to work. What kind of work are they doing? Most of them are into the beautician businesses. The notion that foreigners are taking away jobs of South Africans is one that will be allaying the fears of the ordinary South African people, because we've moved with this notion several times to say people are taking their jobs, they cannot get any work to do. Then it becomes a failure on the system, not on the issue of migration.
Again, here is another clip from South Africa's International Relations Minister.
In Ghana, in particular, they've got laws that reserve particular sectors of the economy for Ghanaian nationals. Hair salons and so forth cannot be done by a foreign national. It details sectors which foreign nationals cannot participate in. South Africa does not have such laws.
How do you respond to that?
I can name 1, 2, 3, 4, more than 5, 10 South African businesses in Ghana that are the same as the beautician businesses that the Ghanaian ordinary person does in South Africa. I need just one business owner in Ghana who is a South African that can come out now and point out that the same treatment that people are treating our people in South Africa is being meted out to them in Ghana. I just need one example. If you can give us one example, we would withdraw this stance that we have, because the Ghanaian person knows that if you have a South African working in your country, doesn't mean that that person is taking all the economic opportunities that you have.
Yeah, but if we look strictly at numbers, Ambassador, the gap remains quite strong. You would want to agree with me. Why are thousands of Ghanaians moving south for opportunity while South Africa's presence in Ghana is not that much?
I'm happy you are talking about the numbers, but you are not talking about the nominal figures I've just given you in terms of foreign direct investment that comes into both countries. I was wishing that you were going to ask me that, how come Ghana only gains 2.9 million rands when South Africa gains 670-something million rands in a month?
But I mean, trade imbalance is a factor. Some would find that economic justification for migration as flawed, Ambassador. But make me understand.
These are questions that you have to ask. Because the Ghanaian business person or the South African business person has all the backings of the legal regime in Ghana when it comes to businesses. We don't have it in this country. I can name South Africans in Ghana who are using what we call the Ghana card. The Ghana card is a form of identification that lets you do a lot of things in Ghana. South Africans have it. Most of our people, the 15,000 plus people that are in this country, you can tell categorically that almost 50-60% of them are people who came into this country legally. Their permit or their visas had expired. They have gone to apply for a renewal. The renewal has not been given.
Interesting about the Ghanaian card.
Yes.
Yes, even South Africans have it.
Mm-hmm.
He is also, arguing that Ghana actually injects hundreds of millions of rands into the South African economy, which is like some sort of a win-win kind of a thing. It's not like Ghana is taking anything from South Africa. It's, it's an exchange.
Yeah. He demonstrated that, of course, Ghana is contributing heavily through foreign direct investment to South Africa's economy, and therefore the argument that the economy is struggling doesn't maybe hold to why there is the hate against Ghanaians living in South Africa. And that is where I have the pushback, Nili. Economists will tell us that the trade deficits push people away from home. Say if Ghana imports from South Africa but can't export its own manufactured goods, that means jobs at home are shrinking.
It's really something, very interesting that you've just raised. And you're saying that people aren't moving because of spreadsheets. They are moving because of, because of capital. They want to spread around the continent and, have access to some of these opportunities.
Yes.
Isn't that what you're saying?
That is precisely what I'm saying. And the imbalance, roughly, we're saying 15,000 Ghanaians in South Africa versus only 3,000 South Africans in Ghana, isn't, a corporate investment story. It's ordinary people chasing opportunities. Their home economies have failed to provide.
But these are a lot of numbers, Judge.
Definitely.
I can't deal with this for a very long time. That is why we need to a little bit, lighten the mood and try to see who the ambassador is when he's not talking diplomacy and politics.
Yes, we have a very special way of doing that, and we do that under the rapid fire segment.
So what is the most Ghanaian thing about you?
It's the way I speak. Ghanaians don't have this entrenched voice and entrenched speech therapies.
What is one stereotype Ghanaians and South Africans have about each other that needs to end immediately?
Oh, well, I think that the notion that every Ghanaian in South Africa is regarded as a Nigerian, I think they need to know the difference between all of us so that we can be able to deal with each other.
After a tough debate like this one, what would you choose, tea or coffee?
Wine.
Okay, something completely different from the two options. So, which African leader do you admire the most?
The president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama.
And if you were not a diplomat, what would you be?
If I was not a diplomat, maybe I'll be a teacher in the classroom.
What is that biggest misconception that people have about diplomats?
People think that diplomats can just take a phone and then call and get things done. And so I think we should continue to educate them that diplomacy has much to do about writing than to take a phone and call somebody.
Interesting. And what do you enjoy doing when you are not talking politics or diplomacy?
I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of walking. And I do a lot of listening to music.
Right. And please finish this sentence for us. Africa will be better if
we all work together as one rather than fighting against each other.
Solid.
Judge, has there been a time here under the Baobab where a government official said their icon was someone else or their legend was someone else?
Do you want them to lose their job? Would you do that yourself?
But opposition leaders have different people, right?
Yeah, so they don't have a job to protect at the end of the day. Would you say your icon is none other than
It's completely different with me. I'm not a politician, George. I am not. So
all right.
Now let us proceed. During the break, the ambassador made a striking point saying that 15,000 Ghanaians in a country of 64 million represents just 0.02% of South Africa's population.
That's very true mathematically if you consider it, because 15,000 people did not cause load shedding in South Africa. They did not collapse the public hospitals, which is a point of contestation as well. So blaming one nationality, it's a deflective, idea in my view.
And here's where solutions journalism demands that we even look closer, because it's our job to, dig deeper. We don't hang on the polemics alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Shift the lens from Ghana's own, responsibility or collective responsibility. South Africa hosts an estimated 2 to 4 million migrants from across Africa. These are facts that we know. And in townships where one clinic serves about 50,000 people, the strain is real. It's too much. And it's felt by South Africans and even the migrants alike.
Yes, I believe those following this particular episode will also agree that the strain is real. But the question is, who created that strain? Migrants or 3 decades of governance failure since the apartheid ended?
And that's the right question, because here's what I've learned reporting on this particular issue. Countries that have managed migration so well, like Rwanda, we can't say it's a 100% success, but like Rwanda integrating refugees into local economies or Uganda's progressive refugee policy have actually gained economically. It profits the economy of the country.
Yes.
So the issue isn't migration itself. It's the way it's managed.
And that is the core of the discussion, where many people are calling for the government to act. And that's the failure right there. Both Pretoria and the sending governments have failed to manage it. Ghana is now actively repatriating some of its citizens. So I asked the ambassador directly, is repatriation a real solution or just a political band-aid?
Yes, I think that with the situation that happened and with how we heard the news that Ghanaians should go back home and go fix Ghana, we don't have a broken economy in Ghana. We don't have a broken country. So when you say that we should go and fix our economy, there are some who believe that once here and there's nothing to do, whatever they are applying, whatever trade they are applying here, they can go back to Ghana and work better. And I think that government is just heeding the call of the ordinary citizen of Ghana that we cater for. Every single Ghanaian life out of the shores of Ghana is very important to the government of Ghana.
And now, for Ghanaians currently in South Africa and those perhaps considering moving there. What assurance can you give regarding their safety and protection?
Well, I think we just have to operate on the confines of the Vienna Convention and also operate in the belief of the African Union, the Pan-Africanisms that we've all been asked to adhere to. At the mission, we make it clear to Ghanaians that you need to be legal, come what may, in a country where you want to ply a trade. Those that we feel that they've overstayed their welcome to go back home and ensure that they regularize themselves into the Ghanaian system. Those that don't want to regularize themselves into the Ghanaian system, make sure if you want to come to South Africa, come on the right documentation.
So Judge, there's this African saying that a hand cannot tie a bundle.
Yeah.
You know, what President Cyril Ramaphosa is now doing, he's trying to, bring different political opinions in officials together, different groups, political parties, to see how to put an end to the wave of anti-migrant, violence, protests, the hate that we've talked about.
Yes.
But in terms of dialogue, these issues that I've just mentioned, it's not been able to put an end to the demonstrations that we are seeing on the streets.
Yeah, as early as I think just last week, I was sitting down with my South African friends because we are interested to know what is happening on the ground, and they were saying that a township southwest of Johannesburg took to the streets, and what they are demanding is police to verify documents of foreign shop owners.
And it's a good thing that you are speaking to some of your South African friends here, and we are also speaking to people back home in South Africa to find out what they actually think about, what is happening at the moment. Our correspondent on the ground, Tuzo Kumalo, went to the ground to speak with the residents and with now Ghanaian nationals, voluntarily preparing to leave out of here. Let us hear what some of them had to say.
They must come and fetch their citizens. That's what a good government does. The time when they were running away from their countries to South Africa because they claimed their countries were not safe, they didn't caution their citizens not to come to South Africa, did they? Now, why are they cautioning their citizens to continue staying in South Africa and be safe? If they are not safe in South Africa, they must caution them to go and hop to the next country or come back home. Don't caution them to stay here.
I can't just pack my things and just go to Ghana just like that. My whole life has been here in South Africa, even though, yes, I went to Ghana once to visit. But my whole life, I've always here in South Africa. I'm a resident here in South Africa. So to me, I don't think I can just go to Ghana just like that, just to start afresh just like that. I can't.
It's quite unfortunate that South Africa has to be the country where I feel very unsafe. You cannot be living in fear. I'm here legally. I'm conducting my sport business. And people who know me know I've been to a lot of countries. You may have genuine concerns. But now the manner in which you approach your concerns now becomes a problem.
So you can feel the human perspective in this issue. So it goes beyond just, politics, diplomacy. Now we are hearing from the people themselves, affected, hearing from a South African.
Yeah, you can't help but to sympathize, Mimi.
Who feels like they should go because, we don't have enough opportunities here. We are tired of foreigners. And someone who spent her whole life in South Africa asking, if I go back to Ghana, what becomes of me? How would my life be like? In fact, I know nowhere else as home.
Yes. Other than South Africa, yeah,
so,
because maybe you've set up business, you've established yourself in that particular country,
right?
And let me just call it out. When say the Ghana Foreign Ministry summoned South Africa's envoy to Accra, demanding protection guarantees that's not isolated, and that's the pattern Pretoria refuses to name.
Right,
yes.
And these isolated incidents, that's how the Foreign Affairs Minister of South Africa coined it.
Yes.
That is not a national problem. There are just, few cases here and there being reported. But when you were discussing with the Ghana High Commissioner, is that something that you pressed him on?
Let's listen to his response.
I don't know what we would define the term that these are not widespread. It's happening in Eastern Cape, it's happening in Durban, it's happening in the Western Cape. The images are there for all of us to see. So when we look at it at that level, we want to believe and say that is there a systematic failure on part of ensuring that citizens are protected here and there. They've indicated to us at the last briefing of the African ambassadors that they have put in place systems that have even enabled them arrest some of the leaders of the groups that have led us. We applauded them and we told them that should they continue this way, we are sure that the other ordinary South African will not take the law into their own hands and go on to shops, lock shops, take keys from them, beat up foreigners.
Well, as a diplomat working in this environment, do you sometimes feel helpless? And are you concerned of safety of your staff, perhaps?
I wouldn't say that the situation is helpless. In as much as it is deplorable, it is not helpless. We've been speaking as two countries, great countries that have always communicated among themselves. I have stated categorically on every platform I find myself that illegal immigration is a global challenge. The approach to solving it's what we are saying that it's not the right thing. The approach that some South Africans are using in their quest to solve the problem, that is where we believe it's a challenge. And I believe that if this should be happening in my country, Ghana, as well, the whole world, including yourselves, will call us out to ensure that we do the right thing.
Of course, the world will call Ghana out to ensure that everybody is doing the right thing. And as always, your voice matters to these particular conversations. We want to hear where you stand with this diplomatic tug of war.
Who do you really think bears the responsibility for resolving this migration crisis? Others will call it xenophobia.
I'm happy that we've already started seeing, comments streaming on this particular subject. And I'll start with John Okwere, who is saying, Ghana gave passports and scholarships to South Africans in their time of adversity to get them on their feet. And they can't dehumanize the few Ghanaians there and expect us to watch them die.
We also have this comment from Peter's Base. Peter's Base says that as South Africans, we thank Ghana for taking its people so they can build Ghana. And we also hope Ghana also shows their cousins, Nigeria, how countries should respect themselves, or countries that respect themselves do. Actually, South Africa has faced recurrent waves of anti-migrant violence, since at least 2008.
Yes.
But I know that this violence started way before 2008, when more than 60 migrants were killed and tens of thousands displaced. We saw devastating flare-ups again in 2015, 2019, and 2021. Even post-apartheid era has never been fair for migrants in South Africa, and even for South Africans themselves.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's a very painful cycle, we must say. And let's say it plainly, it's no coincidence that this latest spike is happening just months ahead of, they have a local government elections, slated. And as political parties are scrambling for votes by pointing fingers outward.
So the real question is, how does this cycle finally end?
Again, I'll reiterate that they should ensure that their systems are working. Once these systems are working, trust you me, this era of this influx of people undocumented in this country will be solved. Why would a Ghanaian have to fly to Zimbabwe and then take a bus from Zimbabwe and come to South Africa? You need to come through the port. You need to come through OR Tambo International Airport. If these systematic things are put in place, I can assure you that we would have halved the problem of illegal immigrants in South Africa.
And at a leadership level, how can African countries work together to prevent young people from, turning against one another, both online and in real life?
Let's not run away from our history. Our history is shredded in us fighting against each other, even though we are supposed to be fighting with each other. Borderless Africa is what will put us on the pedestal with unions like the European Union, with the Asian Union, those who come together to trade among themselves, to work among themselves. Africa is well poised than all other continents to be able to absorb whatever numbers we have in terms of our young people, in terms of the resources that we have. Leadership is all we ask for. Once we get that leadership, I'm sure that this whole issue of economic migration and economic challenges will be a matter of the past for the African continent. We are getting there.
We have seen it all in today's show, George. Anger, hate.
All emotions.
We've also seen sadness and, politics. But we've seen, at the end of the day, this concluding statement from Ambassador Quashie says it all. And there was no better way to actually end this discussion.
Solution directed, that is how I find it.
Right. But before we signed off, a special shout out to our huge community who drove last week's debate on our different social media platforms.
Yes, and this tells you that we can respond to what you tell us. You told us you want a rebuttal from the Ghanaian, side after South Africa's, minister mentioned some things about Ghana, and that is exactly what we did, and that is what we will continue doing. We want you to keep engaging with us.
And we see you, we hear you. We also challenge you, of course, if you want. We can also bring someone from Nigerian side next week. If you want, let us know in the comment section.
Yes, and if you want more honest, raw, and unfiltered conversations about African politics and society, what you need to do is to hit that subscribe button Under The Baobab on DW Africa YouTube page.
And there are other places where you can also follow our audio episodes. We have
Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next time, keep the conversation going under your own Baobab tree. My name is George Okachi.
And I am Mimi Mefoneu. See you next time.